Bluffton is home. Bluffton is home to us. That we were bred, trained to invest in our community.
The Martins basically have always believed in God first, family, and community.
As the story goes, Caroline Martin married John. He was a slave, and that's where we came from. Our mother was from Savannah, and she married our father. Our father was a merchant seaman. He told us that he left Bluffton walking bare feet from Bluffton to Charleston, and he hitchhiked to Charleston because he had an uncle that had moved to Charleston. I think he said he was 12 years old, went to Charleston, and he started sailing, merchant seaman, out of Charleston, and that was his life.
My father's mother actually in 1967, while on duty as a missionary inside of Campbell Chapel AME Church, located here in Bluffton, had a heart attack and died. But she understood the power of education. Even though she had a limited education, she wanted her children to understand that education is the foundation for a better life.
I left Bluffton in 1942 at the age of 14 to go to the Shanklin School. That was the only education available for us. You know, my background is a very humble one, but ambitious. When I finished Allen University in 1950, I contacted the dean of the law school at the University of South Carolina, and he had agreed to accept me, see, when I applied. But Strom Thurmond, when he heard that I was going to enter the University of South Carolina, announced publicly that as long as he was governor, no Negro would enter the University of South Carolina Law School. When I got into this squabble with Strom about going to the University of South Carolina, and they forced me out. That's what, you know. And I had some buddies up in Detroit that said, come on up here. And that's what got me out of Bluffton. And then they harassed my two sisters away. And they ended up, you know, both of my sisters ended up, because they taught in Detroit when they first left Bluffton, and then they went to Philadelphia.
My father frequently reminded us that we had a responsibility. His responsibility first was to return home to Bluffton and to make certain that he could impact the lives of others in the way that he had received, and that was through education. And that was something that we heard almost every day in our home.
You know, I came back and got involved in education, and I worked at the school district. I taught political science, U.S. history, world history, government.
He never gave up. He never gave in, he never gave up, he never said no. He was determined to make it happen any way possible. My mother said, if you're not in over your head, you're not in deep enough. And he always had that attitude.
I believe in education and knowledge and contributing to doing something, building up your community.
So after my father returned, my mother and father returned, mother started Bluffton Self-Help and continued to help families in need.
You know, Bluffton Self-Help, that was our contribution to our community. We just got so much cooperation from the community itself that it was successful from the beginning. And it just kept growing and growing and growing because the entire community was involved.
Well, my mother, Ida Martin, was selected, and she received the nomination to receive the Presidential Award for Citizen, and she was the first South Carolinian, to receive the Presidential Award for humanitarian causes. We were so excited when we received a notice that Mother was going to receive an award from President Barack Obama. My mother, after starting Bluffton Self-Help, saw a continued need, and that was hot food for many of the families living in trailers. And she sat down with a small dedicated group of diversified church ladies and decided to start a soup kitchen, even though we don't serve soup.
We were trained that way. Our family was trained that way, to build up our community.
The after-school program is an example of what works. We do what we know and we do it well. That's my motto, because it's all about relationships and trust. And once you have that, then you can get to the heart of educating the mind, and that will impact the lives for a better way to live. We know that when you actually have a relationship already established, many of the children are nearby in our community, a part of our church. My father taught the parents. I'm now teaching their children and their grandchildren. So it's just a continuance of the legacy of making certain that you give back to better the lives of one individual, and that's in my prayer every morning, to impact the life of someone one at a time better than it was the day before. And I'm passing that on to my children as well. And hopefully it'll continue on, and the Martin legacy will remain here in Bluffton and be strong to the community and its growth.